We're good?
Yep.
Okay. It being the appointed and noticed hour, I call the Public Service Committee meeting of the Gardner City Council to order. The record will reflect that all members are present, and that is anybody making an announcement, anybody making a recording other than staff? And if not, then we'll proceed with the first item on the agenda, which is review and approval of the minutes for the meeting dated July 26, 2022.
I move that we waive reading of the minutes and approve them as presented.
Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, the motion passes. Next item on the agenda is abatements for water and sewer bills. First item is 53 Line Street. And we have somebody here, as I understand? Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, come on in. Have a seat. Again, for the record, this is a matter for the Public Service Committee regarding a billing to 53 Line Street in Gardner. And we have with us
Karen Murphy, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
No, that's okay, Karen. Thank you for coming. So, when we get started, can we make a presentation, Mr. Director?
Basically what happened is the water department thought this building was vacant. Since 2015 was the last reading. So they were billed a minimum of $66 for the last 6.5 years. They just took a current reading back in June and found that there was usage, far more than what we had estimated. And that's why this last bill was so high. It basically made up for what we were estimating. We estimated low over the course of 7 years, 6.5 years.
A couple of questions I have. That's what I understood from the materials, at least in general. Is there a procedure for notifying DPW when an occupancy permit is issued or when there's some ownership change?
Well, look at ownership changes, usually typically through the realtor or an attorney. We'll contact the water department for the final read. I don't believe there was an ownership change in this owner of the church. I think they just
wasn't occupied?
Yeah,
There was no activity?
Right. And the water department shows up, they don't see any vehicles, they just assume it's vacant, so they assume it's...
Okay, so there's no, is it an exterior read?
I believe on that one, yeah, it's an exterior touch. I don't believe they have to access the building.
That was my thought too, but I think they do have to come in.
Oh,
The notes say,
okay.
on this say it is an inside meter reading.
Oh, I'm sorry, it says right here, it requires inside access.
Okay, I understand. And the notes indicated that there has been activity there since 2016, is that correct?
Yes, we purchased it in 2016.
So there was a change of ownership?
From the Catholic Church, yeah.
Okay.
And, well, we actually, I know the city was aware, I don't know about your department, you know, what kind of, and I can understand that they wouldn't have seen any activity, outside activity, because we're basically open on Sunday, and especially those first few years. And I assumed getting these minimum billings that was your procedure, that you had a certain amount of usage that we were allowed and that we didn't exceed that. I didn't realize there weren't any meter readings being taken place, and I assumed you were a radio read or...
Yeah, you didn't realize
so,
that.
But certainly if we knew that, these are, I guess, considered estimated bills, then we would have asked for a reading.
Yeah, when estimated bills go, when bills based on estimates go out, do they indicate that it's an estimate?
Yeah, there's an E, but the
Yeah, that doesn't
typical-
necessarily mean anything.
No, the typical homeowner would not know what an E meant, or a W or an A, you know?
Yeah. So is this just water, or is it sewer as well, or
It would be water and sewer.
water rains? So what is it that you're seeking?
Well, some relief, basically, if you could reduce it for us. I know there's no way of knowing how much we've used for each year, but I'm assuming the rates have increased over that period.
Yeah, they've increased.
So we're being charged for 6.5 years at this highest rate. Also, I don't know if there's any way of telling how much sewer versus water was used, because this past year we're under construction right now with the diner.
Right.
So there would be, that would be straight water usage, any increase there.
Mhm.
The rates were adjusted based on, as they increase, you can see it going from 39 to 42 to 45. So they weren't charged the highest rate for the last 7 years. So they were adjusted based on as the rate increased.
But once it was read, it was, the rate that was applied, once it was read, was the current rate, I assume.
Yeah, I would assume, so, yes, I understand what you're saying, yeah. So that would have to be dispersed.
Over the course of, excuse me. Do you have a suggestion or a recommendation, Mr. Director?
This happens once every 5 years, I feel like. What they typically do is they'll go back 2 years, or some duration of time, and ignore or give relief for the prior years. They'll only go back like 2 years and go forward.
Okay, and are we able to do that in this kind of a situation? How would we?
I believe we can.
And how would that, in rough numbers, work out to be?
Well, it would be 2/7 of this bill.
Oh, I see what
You
you
know
mean.
what I'm saying? Something on that idea.
So because we're running 7 years of non-readings, right?
That's just something to consider.
So, I mean, there isn't a question of whether the water usage was there, and it's a question of the
No.
fact that over the course of time, you weren't billed for it, and now you've got a large, significant
Exactly,
bill
yeah.
that.
Because we did take the reading just to see if maybe it was the meter, or if we had a leak or something, but it does seem to be working okay.
System's tight, yeah.
Yeah.
Councilor, your thoughts, your questions?
With the construction part you're talking about, I guess, how was the water being used, or what goes in the sewer? I guess I didn't understand that.
Basically, we're using it because we had to plumb the whole area for the diner. They were doing tests for the plumbing to make sure it worked. And, we had to dig up the concrete floor, so they were using a wet saw. So that was just strictly water.
Okay, understood, thank you.
Yeah, so this was the contractor that you hired?
Yes.
So once again, the contractor's using your utilities in order to do their work? But anything else? No? I'm sorry, nothing else?
I have no other questions. That has been the course of action in the past for these type of bills, that type of looking back 2 years. I'd be willing to entertain that if that was something.
The concern I have is that there was that notice wasn't, I assume when ownership, there probably wasn't the need for a new occupancy permit?
Unless there was something done internally, I would think on the building inspector, but if there was no renovations done at that time.
No, not necessarily.
Yeah.
It seems like the assessor would get notice though of it, of the deed.
Yeah, possibly.
I'm just wondering if you should explore whether on property transfers that that you get notified, perhaps from the assessor's office,
Yeah.
who would get notice, they regularly get notice of transfers.
I think generally we do. I don't, like I said, this happens once every,
And the blue moon.
yeah,
Dr. Arnold, was there, the water meter being inside, was that a key part of why this was missed? or-
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, like she said, if it's every Sunday they're there and the water department shows up, there's no way to gain access. And
Right.
so at some point, we'll probably need to, and that might have already been done, put an outside read or a radio read in the building, change out. Have to find out what size meter it is, but that.
So it seems to me that would be part of the solution here.
Yeah,
So that-
100%.
And do we have a general idea of the percentage of meters that are exterior reads or outside reads versus inside?
Well, I'd say probably 99% of them are at least touchpad. I can't imagine it's more than 1 or 2% of the city that you have to physically go in the building, and probably only 10% are radio reads where you literally drive by. So we're slowly changing it out, it's just a process.
So the vast majority of, like you said, over 90%, you'd say?
Yeah, touchpads outside.
So it can be read without having to go inside.
Correct.
Well, I'd be supportive of charging in arrears based on 2/7 of the arrearage that's owed.
I think that's fair. I move that we charge 2/7 of the arrears.
Why don't we just
Do have a
figure out the
number
percentage of
on
that?
So can I add?
Go ahead.
As part, I've asked that they work with the department to get in there so that just so we can change the meter out to make it a radio read or.
Oh,
as part
sure.
of it.
I mean,
Agreed.
I think that's something you would want to do irrespective of this particular issue. Yeah.
I'm sure you as well.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes.
Just set up a report.
Yeah.
So 29%.
Yeah, roughly $723,
Okay.
roughly.
We'll let the,
So the motion made is to abate the arrearage down to 700 and,
I have one more question. Is that something you would want a payment plan for, or is something you'd be able to pay in full?
It'd be helpful if maybe we could do it in 2 payments.
That's more than fair, I think.
sure.
That's fine.
Yeah, I think so. So include that in your
I'm
motion?
going to include that in my motion, yes.
And then, so the motion is to abate the arrearage down to $723 to be paid, plus ongoing charges over the course of the 2 payment periods.
Second.
Any further discussion, comments from the director? No? Not all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I step away for 1 minute and get an appointment just while she's here?
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
Good idea. Meeting will stand in recess for the time being.
So we'll be giving an adjustment bill?
Yeah. Dodgeball.
The camera's still running. Oh, that's good results.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tried doing 2/7 in my head, and just immediately went to the
I was
calculator.
looking at the fraction next to it.
Yeah.
I saw you punching away, so I was like, well, I left my phone in the car, so.
I duplicate the effort.
Check twice. The whole $86.
A few sleeves of balls.
Yeah. $1.5 maybe.
She's all set.
Good. Okay, the meeting will resume to order. Next item on the agenda is the status of 10 Robillard Street in Gardner, or review of a previous decision. Which you put for the record, Mr. Director.
The Service Committee made a decision on, back in March 31st, to grant her a payment plan. And she basically reneged on that, and she just made a payment, and made, as of August 21st, was her first payment from March. She did pay $340 bucks. I just wanted to present it to the committee to see if you wanted to continue with trying to work.
Well, a couple of things. So there have been how many buildings since March?
Would have been June?
June?
6, would have been 6, yeah. Because she's billed in March and then on 6, so that's June. The next month would be, would be 9 in September.
September, okay. And so there was no payment on the regular bill or the arrearage until a couple of days ago?
Until 8/21, correct.
And what was the charge for, the regular charge for usage?
Charge would have been $333.
So she paid $340,
Correct.
and when was that due?
Well, the bill comes out on June 2nd, so July 2nd.
Okay. Now, the note we have is that the owner called in response to the letter that we sent August 16th notifying her that, you know, she hadn't, well, before we get to that, the decision we made didn't say when the payments were due for that 1 year that we gave her, as I recall.
I'd have to do a little research on that.
Well, I think the letter that we sent her is, at the meeting today, the Public Service Committee voted to implement a payment plan allowing you 1 year to pay off the invoice in reference.
Technically, yeah, thanks, Ray.
Well, I'm just saying what information she was given about the decision that we made. You know, I think it would be reasonable to infer that she thought she had a year to pay it off.
Well, therefore, any quarterly bill payments made after the 30-day payment period, any quarterly bill payments made after the 30-day bill period would result in a default in the payment plan. So if her bill is due July 2nd.
Did the bill that she was sent include a portion of the arrears?
I can go check. I don't have that information.
Well, I'm just trying to, you know, reasonably, it would be nice if she was here, but she didn't come to the prior meetings either.
I can ask Jess.
Is that okay? Yeah, can you do that? She indicates she'll pay it off, you know, by October. In the note that she left for us.
So she's given a bill with her current charge and then the total amount, which would have been that whole amount that she was in arrears of.
Okay. So she wasn't billed for a quarterly amount of that arrears?
No. She's billed the entire, like I said, the current, and then I believe the committee ruled on to break it up into four.
Four payments,
Yeah.
but that's not how it was billed, that wasn't on the bill, it was on the notice that she received.
Right.
Yeah.
Just the total amount.
Yeah, okay. The other note from the call by the owner was that, as you had indicated, she made a payment of it on August 21st of $340, which is pretty much the charged amount, just over that. But she also indicated that she would be paying off the remaining balance in October, right? I don't know, what do you guys feel about
We keep it on our agenda.
keep it on the agenda until sometime after October
Okay.
and see where we are. But I think, reading this as somebody who, knows that she's in arrears, and getting a letter that has a little bit of mixed message on it, but indicating that she had a year to pay it off. She's offering to pay it off in basically a little over 6 months. We'll see what payments she's made by the end of October. So why don't we defer this action on this until a meeting in November?
Yeah,
Sounds fair to me, yeah.
Yeah, you would make a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay. Next is Public Works update.
Well, we're starting to put the city back together after tearing it apart with the water project. We've got a portion of downtown remaining, which they're scheduled to come in tomorrow and finish paving Parker Street from Main Street down to Lafayette Square. They did Connors the other day. The rain event was in the forecast. It was supposed to start in the morning, but unfortunately it didn't come in until like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But
So they were able to get the day in?
they got, no, they pulled out because the radar showed
Showed it coming in?
Yeah.
They lost the day?
they lost today. So they'll finish Parker Street tomorrow, and then we have line painting lined up with the parking spaces and center lines and all that. And we'll finish the rest of the center lines in the city, including, I think, Lawrence Street, Woodland Avenue, and a couple of areas in the city that need some more line painting work done. So today and tomorrow, we're actually pulverizing Crestwood Drive.
I saw the sign there.
So pulverizing that, and then I would assume that they might even come in, I haven't got a date yet, but they may call me today and say they're coming in tomorrow and paving Crestwood. If not, they're gonna try to get it done as early as next week. At least the base coat, they come in.
And this is the entirety of Crestwood? Or?
Yes, right from the good
All the
portion.
way to Hillside or
Uh,
top?
Where Bigford Hill loops around, going from there. It's the entire dead end, all the way down to Highland Avenue.
Highland. Highfield Road, I think that's.
Highfield. So there's that. The Lawrence Street walk is now kind of become an issue because school opens and I can't get, we need to go in and they have to set concrete handicap ramps at, I believe there's 6 of them. There's 2 on Pearl, 2 on Edgell, and 2 on Cross, that they come in and they'll set the concrete pad first, and then we'll come in and we'll rip out the existing asphalt sidewalk, and then they'll come in and pave it. We can't get we're under contract with Mass Broken Stone, but we can't get the contract to have them come in and do those 6 ramps. So my dilemma is, do I put the ramps in, tear it out, and it's guaranteed gonna be on the first week of school. That's when they're gonna call me and they're gonna say, we wanna do this, come in and do this walk. And we may end up having to do it. Or I can try to put it off until October. I'm just trying to schedule that, but we can't.
How long a project is it?
Well, the ramp's probably gonna take 3 days, probably a day to form, probably 2 days to form it and a day to pour, so probably 3 days to do the concrete. Then we gotta get up there and remove the walks, which will probably be up there for 3 to 5 days, removing the walks, and then probably pave it too, so you're looking at
So
7 days.
we're still talking about paving, because there was a question about whether concrete was, because of the pricing of the contract, might be a viable option.
Yeah, it's just with the asphalt sidewalks and trying to tie a concrete walk into those existing, the existing asphalt driveways, it would be very difficult to try to pour a concrete slab to match some of the elevations near those trees and
Yeah.
with the existing driveways. So
Yeah,
asphalt.
it's kind of an undulating,
Yeah,
I think that's the word I used. Just
I like that. So it would be asphalt, it's just a matter of, I know we're gonna get the public, so, they couldn't have done this during the summer, we just couldn't get the contractor there.
So would it be better to do it in the spring?
It would be better to do it when school's out, so,
Then how long is the contract good for?
I get a 3-year contract for them.
For the pricing?
It's got a slight escalation, but we could get it done probably in June.
I think doing it when school is out
Yes.
certainly makes the most sense, because there's, you know, a good amount of usage in both directions. Schooling is probably gonna increase,
Yep.
although I don't know about elementary school kids walking to school from down that way. I mean,
It's not gonna go down.
these days, anyway.
But I'm gonna talk to the contractor and see what we can get done, because, we have a week and a half to try to pull that together, but it's gonna be real tight, and I don't think it's gonna happen.
I noticed that I took a ride on the way here down Graham Street. And Graham Street is concrete walk through the driveways, including the driveways.
Yes.
And why is it that we couldn't do that?
Well, one is the sidewalk is set off the road 10 feet, you're just, it's
Oh,
it's
yeah,
it's gonna compound the cost of that significantly.
You'd end up having to do a concrete apron out to the street in addition, you know, from the edge of the sidewalk.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. Whereas with asphalt, you're just blending into the existing driveway.
Right. And I think there's at least 2 people on that street that have just done their driveways, and I don't wanna saw cut through that.
Yeah, Clem's one of them.
Right. So that's unfortunately where we're at.
Well, I think priority should be to do it when school is out. It's my own view. I was just concerned about whether the cost might change because of the contract.
I think we'll be good.
Yeah. And as long as you don't spend the money on something else in the meantime.
So that's Lawrence, September 12th, the week, well, it's probably gonna be a 2-week project. They're gonna go in and they're gonna pulverize the Coleman, Douglas, Roblot, Wickman, Draper, Foss roads, basically everything west of Coleman Street, they're gonna pulverize. They'll be in there for 2 weeks, and what they're gonna try to do is pulverize Foss, Draper, and a small section of Douglas and Shore Lane. Get it pulverized, grade it, and then they'll come in and pave it. And while the paving company's in doing these streets, they'll be pulverizing and try to do it in sections. But we'll be down in that area for probably at least 2 months between pulverizing, paving. Once they set the paving, we'll go in and do all the ramps. We're putting all the concrete handicapped ramps down and all the intersections where the sidewalks are, and then berms and brand new sidewalks in that whole area. But we'll be down there a while. It's gonna really look nice though once it's done, but there's that.
Good.
And then when we are paving a section of Harper Street, there's a ramp which community development had done the sidewalks on it. There's a ramp at the intersection of Graham and Parker Street that when we pave it, we're not gonna be able to grade our asphalt up to where the contractor left the elevation of the ramp. They didn't
Drop it low enough. Yeah.
So, once we're done, we're gonna set the grade of the road as at least as high as we can to allow the water to flow without causing a puddle. Construction Dynamics is gonna come back, and they're gonna set that a couple of inches low, so people might ask, why are we
Well, they
tearing?
dig it up and
Right. Hopefully not
regrade
touch
it.
the asphalt, but just the concrete panel section of it, so we met with Construction Dynamics out there last week, and we think we can make it work. But just in case you get any calls, why are we tearing up the sidewalk, so.
Yeah, no, it's not because somebody's been walking in it.
No, that's done. Rivoli, they're still in town, they're doing some punch lists as far as some concrete work and some grass, looming and seeding. Unfortunately with the drought, whatever we seed is not taking, but they are doing part of their contract, they are finishing that up. We are down 7 people in the highway municipal grounds and water and sewer department. We're in the process now of trying to hire some people. We have signage up and some advertising out. You talking about the fitness lab or what?
Again.
And the sludge, at the sludge landfill, we had the dozer that more or less processes the sludge and does the grading up there. It had a catastrophic failure. They looked at it. It was a $68,000 engine repair on it. So I looked into trading this model in, and I had to, under an emergency, we had to purchase a dozer in the last less than a month. So retail cost of it is $235,000. With the state's bid, we got it down to $150,000, and with negotiating with our trade-in, we're spending $111,000 for this brand new dozer up there, which is still a lot of money, but it's.
Will that be its only usage?
Yes. Yep.
And that's from water funds?
From sewer.
From sewer funds, excuse me.
Yeah. So that was an unexpected giant cost to the sewer department, but, so the money that I had in encumbered equipment and this year's equipment was spent on that dozer, unexpectedly. But
Had you reserved that for other equipment, or?
it was for pickups and utility trucks and things like that, whereas it's not, we'll be okay.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Nothing else? Any questions for the director?
Not at this time, no?
No? Is the pothole patrol out and about?
Yeah, we're, with limited staff, we're
Yeah.
concentrated on Rolla, but yes, we are.
Okay. Is that dropped into the hole at the intersection of Comey and Pearl again?
Oh, they didn't hit that?
I don't think so.
All right.
It's like a hole.
I know you got it. Okay.
Just happened to notice.
All right. I would have told her they got that. But.
Yeah, well, if they did it, it needs to be done again.
All right.
That could be the case too.
Yeah, maybe it's a deep hole. Okay, good enough. Thank you. Next, for survey engineering, Mr. City Engineer.
Yeah, so Director Arnold had mentioned the fitness court. So the city had received funds through the mayor's office, I believe through Blue Cross and Blue Shield, for a fitness court, which is basically, there's body lift bars, so there's a wall with, chin-up bars and other things. There's kind of static, I don't know what you call them, but they don't move, but they're, blocks in different shapes for stretching and exercise. And so there's different stations, but it's basically a 40 by 40 pad with insulated tiles on top in these exercise areas. So as part of that, the DPW is out there prepping the site.
What is the site?
It's over at the high school, I'm sorry, it's next to the tennis courts. So there'll be a new sidewalk out to it, there's a little swale there.
Tennis courts are being redone.
The courts at some point, yeah, the city, you would
We
approve
had funded
funds for.
some.
Yeah, as far as I know, there's a little issue getting a contractor for that, nobody wants to do it, but that's its own project. So the site's being prepped for a concrete pad, which will get poured immediately thereafter. All the parts for the system, I believe out in cold storage, they've already been delivered. So that's fun and interesting, and we've worked with the high school on where it's going and how it's laid out. So that's in progress. I think
Is that the location between tennis courts and the ball field?
No, it's on the other side.
On the other side?
Yep, yeah, so if you pull in, if you're facing the tennis courts, it'd be to the left. And so there's a drainage swale there, that's gonna get a couple of culverts with a new sidewalk going over it. We'll restripe one of the spaces there to make a handicapped accessible parking spot. The whole thing is accessible, so it's open for everybody. And I believe it's sometime early fall, there's a date it has to be done by. Okay.
So the funding was for the equipment, not for the installation?
I believe the mayor had said he had money for the whole thing. So the concrete, there's a contractor coming in to do the concrete pad, just because it's too big and you have to get it just right. So there's a contractor, the building department had sourced that out, so that will get done by a contractor. And then there's a contractor that comes and installs the whole system. That's basically what they do, they install these things. So a nice professional installation, it should be.
It has to be done by when?
Sometime in October, that's part of the agreement, so we're moving kind of quickly on that to get that done.
I believe it's like $175,000 cost by the time you're done with the concrete.
And that's Blue Cross is funding it?
I believe they're funding the equipment, so that, and then there were different, I guess there were other grants or money from other sources to pay for other parts of it.
Yeah, I don't know where the money's going.
You're just doing the work.
Yeah, we're facilitating its installation. Wayside Dam, we met with our engineer last week. That's moving forward to the final design.
That's the East Broadway one?
That's, yeah, up on East Broadway by Morse Electric. That's in disrepair, so it needs to get done. Army Corps' been pushing for a long time to get that done.
It's been a lot of history.
Yeah, so that will go out to probably not this, I believe it's too late for this funding cycle, but it's, Office of Dam Safety has pretty much said it'll get funded when it goes, the application comes in on the next round of funding. So we'll get that designed, get it in for funding, and then hopefully that'll move forward, and that'll wrap up one piece of the flood control project that needs to get addressed.
And that's being, the funding for that project is part of?
So the design was funded previously through the state, and then we're hoping to, through the Office of Dam Safety, they have grants for it, and they want to get it done as much as the Army Corps and as much as we do. So it's pretty much, I wouldn't say fast tracked, but it's been said, get it in and we'll get you.
We'll get you the money.
Yep, yep. The Uptown Rotary still continue to push along. All the notices to the abutters for easements had gone out. The donation certificates were included with that. I'd say maybe half of the owners have donated the easements, which is good. I was still waiting on one owner I hadn't heard from. I was trying to track down. But the next step will be for those who haven't donated the easements. Yeah, so we have to get appraisals done, and then from there, eventually, we need to then determine what kind of compensation they would get and work with them on getting that. So that's the next step. Bike path bridge.
But on the Rotary, is there a timeline for construction?
Yeah, so
The design is completed?
the design, so 100% design went into the state. They were reviewing all the right-of-way issues. I don't even think we've received final sign-off from SDOT on all of the right-of-way issues. That's kind of dragged out for some reason. Apparently SDOT has been a little more tight on all the background information on right-of-way issues. So even as of a week or two ago, they were pushing really hard to get historical information on Elm, Woodland, and Chestnut in terms of the city's fee in those ways. And they're ancient roads. They've existed since Gardner was first founded as a town. So I don't know how he found it, but the surveyor at Niche Engineering researched the county records and found the evidence he needed. Essentially, back in the early 1800s, there was a the town petitioned the county to relocate, I think both Woodland and Elm, and basically then the county approved it that, there were no takings, there were no,
Approved it as it existed?
Yeah, and so he thought that would be enough for the state, but apparently the federal government's cracked down on ownership issues just because they can't fund anything that's privately owned. So if we can't demonstrate we own it,
Then there's a problem.
There's a problem. So Mass DOT's been cracking down on that, is what I'm told. So that dragged on a little bit longer than anticipated. Because of that, the original bid date was to go out in December. Mass DOT pushed that out 3 months. So now that pushes construction back 3 months as well. So originally, I think construction was slated for springtime. Now it's out into summer. So it's still going to get done. It's just for the information they've been trying to gather, has slowed the process and pushed it back a little bit.
People who've asked me about that new Rotary project are concerned that it's going to look like the one in Princeton,
Or
that people that drive over instead of around.
It has a much larger radius. So the one I would compare it to is the one in Lancaster at just off of Route 2 at Route 70 by the car dealership.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's bigger. It's much easier to get through. People have asked me if it's like the one in Fitchburg that people just take a left turn over.
Just ignore it.
Yeah. No, it'll be much more traversable, easy to get around. So I know people were concerned when the Rotary at Timpani got done, and, you know, how's anyone ever gonna get, there's never been a problem, so.
Yeah.
Nope, it should be fine.
Okay, good. I interrupted you for that.
Nope, that's fine, that's a good point. The bike path bridge, that's still continuing to move on. We're still waiting for comments back from National Grid on their issues, but that should be moving forward and getting into the final design, you know, within the next month or two. And then the last thing I have going on right now is the end of September, the EPA stormwater report is due, so that'll get put together and submitted. We do have comprehensive environmental under contract to do some of the larger tasks on that. Some of that's sub-catchment studies within the watersheds, having to do with nitrogen and phosphorus removal and how we get to those. They'll establish what our targets are and then use the sub-catchment areas to demonstrate some of the nitrogen and phosphorus removal is happening out, you know, in the upper parts of the watersheds. So they're working on that, and that will all, well, some of it won't be there for the submittal in September. It'll get submitted as it comes in and attached to the application, to the report. So that's moving forward, and that'll get submitted September 28th. That's all I have for you.
Questions, no comments?
Are there any conceptual drawings or plans online for people to view with the Rotary or the bike path project?
There was at one point, if not, we can get them up, we can put them up on the engineering page.
That'd be good. If people have questions, we can, at least for part of the answer, direct them to the,
Yeah,
to that.
I know GIS had created a kind of a projects page
Yes,
there,
yeah.
so they may even be there already, but I will double check on that.
Okay, good.
Also with the bike path, the connection from, like, downtown area through, like, by Crystal Lake and behind, like, Greenwood Pool and whatnot. What's the status of that at this point?
I think I'll let Trevor talk about that. So they're two separate projects.
Yeah. I just had someone ask me about that recently. So
Yep, I think Trevor's your guy to answer that.
we'll wait for Trevor.
I can answer that.
Well, you're next anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Any more questions for me?
I have nothing else
No, thank you.
at this time. Most important 3 words in politics, at this time. Okay, no other questions? Moving on, Conservation Commission, Mr. Biergard.
So I'll just address the bike path first. And then,
Sure.
So we're probably around the same time frame as far as design is concerned as the bridge itself, moving towards 25% completion of design. We have the funding lined up through Mass Trails and city funds to finish design all the way from Park Street out to 140.
All the way through by Pearly Brook and
Yep.
all the way through?
Yep.
To where it would link up with the bridge?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're coordinating with National Grid, our engineers, the engineers are actually designing the bridge, so everybody's talking together, so we don't come up with, you know, one trail going here and the bridge landing here and no connection.
Mm-hmm.
So we're all talking, but we are waiting on National Grid to get our comments back. The one of the challenges is at 140, where the bridge is gonna be landing and maintaining access for the large trucks in and out for National Grid to get to the substation out there.
Mm-hmm.
They would prefer separating out the truck traffic and pedestrian traffic, obviously, for
Yeah.
safety reasons. So that's one of the challenges we're facing, trying to figure out how to do that.
Well, we own all the land up there, I think, don't
We
we?
On the north side, I think we do, but that's not the preferred. So where the proposed bike trail's going, on the north side, I think we own that land.
City forest land, right?
Correct, but I don't think that's the preferred side, because I think it's
It's to the
low
south of
land,
that,
it's
yeah.
wet on
Yeah.
that side, and then the other side is National Grid.
They own.
On this, yeah, they own a large tract of land there, on the south side of the right of way.
Okay.
So, But again, they're at the table and they're working with us, so I don't see a huge,
No, it shouldn't be anything we can't get through.
yeah.
Okay, good.
So, I mean, we're pretty much in the same timeline as, it's a DOT process, so we're, probably a quarter of the way through. Probably have another year and a half for design.
Okay, thank you.
Then we'll have to start looking for construction. Yeah. Another challenge we're facing too is connecting through the cemetery to the existing National Grid right away, the old railroad bed, where the new substation is. Because of the topography back there and meeting ADA grades, we're facing a challenge. And we're looking at going around the back of the substation, but due to where a lot of the grave sites are, including the Watkins plot,
Mhm.
we're trying to find a way through there, so that's another challenge that we're facing.
Is it a big one, or?
We don't know yet. We're trying to establish contact with the Watkins family to see if we could,
Use part of what they have?
a corner at the end of that roadway at the top, possibly moving their fence in a little bit so we can have access
Mhm.
through there.
That's where that gate is right now?
Correct,
Yeah.
yeah, the farthest to the left.
Mhm.
But yeah, we're trying to get in contact with them and see what their thoughts are. Because it would involve a small sliver of their
Mhm.
end.
So the grade is so severe by the driveway of National Grid. that you
Yeah,
have-
yeah, the back corner of the cemetery.
Right,
where
yeah.
we used to-
Drop, right?
Yeah, it is pretty severe.
Yeah,
And they would prefer us not crossing that area, because that's where the trucks enter and exit. And so they want to try to separate that out again in that area too. Not having the bikes go right through that new parking area where the trucks come in and access the substation. That's where the preferred area is going around the back and up the side to where the existing
yeah,
rail bed is.
yeah, that's highly used too, so,
Yeah.
good.
Anything else?
Well, as far as the Conservation Commission is concerned, just to update this committee, the reservations due tomorrow. And then we'll form a small committee, myself, most likely the assistant director, one or two of the Conservation Commission members, to review the applications and start the hiring process for the new conservation planning agent. Hopefully to have somebody new on board by the end of September.
Oh, that'd be good.
Yep. We're also looking for a part-time person to do minutes for the commission,
Mhm.
which they had prior to Katie coming on board, but one of the employees in the building department was doing the minutes. I think it was Chris and Rachel both left. We lost a minute taker, so Katie's been doing them since then. But I've asked them to post that internally to try to get somebody else on board to help the commission out. As far as projects, I don't have any updates on anything that's before the commission itself. I would say that if this committee does have any questions pertaining to any specific projects, Katie is on Fridays. Katie Burton's still working on Fridays, so contact her directly.
The Conservation Commission met recently and addressed the issue of something that we're interested in, which is the sludge landfill. What's the status of that?
Dane, can you talk to them at all?
Well, they tried to hire I believe they hired a peer review. They voted on it Monday. I believe they got time in mind.
Yeah, I think they were talking to that time on it.
So they've.
A more narrow review, though, as I understand it?
It's, yeah, so anything that's under the Conservation Commission jurisdiction, they'll be reviewing, but the study itself that the DPW performed is, covers a lot more than what is under the conservation jurisdiction.
Right.
So they're not gonna peer review the entire report, they're gonna peer review just those sections that are under the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission, which
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah, is there an estimate of the cost for that?
I think it was in the $15,000 to $20,000 range, I believe.
That's money that the Conservation Commission has?
Yes.
So I don't know how long the peer review will take. I'm hoping a couple of, maybe a meeting or two before they can come back with their findings,
With the
but,
shining report regarding the existing report?
yeah. So we're just in a continuance at this point until
Yeah,
the commission can vote on
I
it.
understand. Okay. Anything else, Trevor?
Nope.
Okay. Then, moving on, Keys Road poll petition. Hopefully we can wrap this one up.
Yeah, so, from what the plan submitted, Time Bond is the engineer, working with Trevor on the culvert replacement. So what it looks like has happened is the design had progressed a little bit. And what I can gather is from their original poll petition, which was based on the preliminary plans for the culvert, it appears that they're proposing to phase that project into a couple of phases. So what they were originally proposing, what the petition was for the poles, included moving a pole on the corner of Edgell and Keys, Edgell Ave and Keys, and then installing a new pole further north up Keys towards West Street. The Time Bond plan actually shows a new layout which includes leaving the pole at the corner of Edgell Ave and Keys, which is the plans you have in front of you. So there's a pole, it's labeled RET UP, which is retained utility pole. And then that's the first phase. The second phase, and so that's keeping the existing overhead wires basically over the middle of Keys while they perform the first phase work. Under the second phase work, which would be the second sheet, they're installing a new pole on the south side of Keys Road, north of Edgell Ave, relocating the overhead wires from the first pole to the new pole, then over Keys Road further north to an existing pole. So what the petition had asked for appears slightly different than what Time Bond is proposing and working with Grid, because these plans came from National Grid, and it seems like they're amenable to doing this. So slightly different than what the petition was asking for, so I don't know if the council needs an updated petition, or if they can take this under that petition. I mean, what they're proposing makes sense if that's the way they're phasing the project, so I have no issues with it.
So the engineering plans from, is it Time Bond?
Yep.
They're the most recent of the status of pole location,
Correct.
as opposed to the kind of the sketch that we received from National Grid with the petition.
Correct.
Seems to me we should, my own view is we should have, and there's no urgency to this thing because the project itself is a couple of years away, it sounds like, that we should have for the council a sketch that reflects what they're actually going to do in the actual locations. The other question, the sketch doesn't identify pole 1 and pole 2, even though the petition makes reference to it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at this point I would recommend.
Well, it doesn't really matter if we're not going to go along with it.
Yeah, no, I guess my recommendation would be to have National Grid submit a revised petition or a new petition, scrap the old one that reflects the current status.
What they're actually going to do.
Yeah.
I suppose, what's the best way for us to do that? Is that something you can?
I can certainly reach out to them and ask that.
Okay, why don't we, and you might also mention to them that had they come to our original meeting, we could have addressed these things.
Yeah.
Time that they did that, maybe they should reconsider their position about sending people to our meetings. Not that we're trying to make things difficult.
No, but it improves the workflow, I think. Should they, just a matter of administratively, do they need to pull the original petition?
I think that they could amend it.
Okay. All right.
I think we've had the public hearing. I mean, they could do that if they wanted to, but I think if they amend it
It's already
by
open.
substituting a new one, we wouldn't necessarily have to go through the whole public hearing process again.
Gotcha.
Unless, under the new plans, there are properties that are affected, that weren't affected by the original one, or there are lines going over public ways in the new one that weren't going over it. That, because we have to have a public hearing for wires going over public ways.
Yeah, I mean, there are currently wires going over the public way, they're just shifting location. And actually, previously, one of the poles that was getting moved was going onto private property, which no longer is gonna happen. So-
Well, that's kind of a big deal. Yeah.
Okay, so you think they should pull the original application?
I think they should pull the original application and resubmit it.
Okay.
I agree.
So, in that regard, why don't we wait to see, I suggest anyway, that we wait to see what response you get, and then if they're gonna do that, we can recommend that this be removed from the calendar. But I think we shouldn't do that until we know how they're gonna respond.
I think that makes sense. I think we should, if you want to leave this on our calendar.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
At the next council meeting, recommend we need more time.
So more time and explain that there's been a change in the plan, and we're waiting for the amended plan.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So moved, if we need a motion to
Yeah,
move forward with that?
okay. Motion made and seconded, motion made by Councilor General Outs, seconded by Councilor Tyros to have the item remain on our calendar and request that the engineer contact the National Grid to submit a new plan, a new petition based upon the engineer Ty and Bond's plans. Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Okay, good. I thought we were gonna. Oh, we're getting there.
Continues on.
Councilor request, Councilor.
I have no requests this week.
A few quick things. The culvert on Union Street, I think you went and looked at it, Rob.
I did, I took some pictures, in fact, Dean and I have to kind of think about that. It's showing some signs of corrosion in the pipe. It's reinforced concrete pipe. The ends are a little worn, looking weathered. I have no real issues structurally with it. It should be fine. But I think at some point it needs to be addressed in terms of just a gauge and maybe getting it replaced. So it's something Director Arnold and I think need to talk about.
No issues with the traffic that's currently going over or anything like that?
No.
The poles, the utility poles on West Broadway over Bent's, I don't know, like over Bent's Pond, I don't know if anyone's had a chance to look at those. I think they've gotten scraped down a little bit from the plowing.
No.
So I don't know if they're still structurally sound or not.
Was it right at Ben's Pond?
Yeah, right at Bent's Pond, crossing over on the eastbound side,
Okay.
on the sidewalk there, so.
We'll have a look.
And I had a concern from a resident about the crosswalks. At the intersection of Tiffany Boulevard and West Broadway, or the signs there to cross. Saying they're not functioning as they should be. I'm not sure if that's true or not.
Push buttons or
The
this?
push, yeah, and like the safety of crossing in that area. I don't know if that can be.
That is electrical inspector.
Yeah, the issue saying there was concern, especially now that there's more businesses and the night for a while now, but still a lot of people crossing that intersection more than before.
I think they've had issues with those buttons in the
Yeah.
past. It's just such an old unit.
Yeah, so especially.
They may not work.
Yeah.
But I'll have the electrical inspector look at it.
I've had a question in my mind whether any of those buttons ever work.
A lot of times they work and the drivers don't heat them.
And that's all I had. Thank you. Oh, just thank you for the tree on Travis Street as well. The crew was out there very quickly. There was a downed tree in the middle of Travis Street yesterday morning, and
Oh, really?
the DPW crew was there within a half hour
Okay.
getting out of there, so.
There's, ongoing exploration of the enforceability of weight restrictions on public ways. Our city ordinances establish certain streets that are, on which there are weight restrictions for commercial vehicles over 2.5 tons. And it's been established, or it's the opinion of the law department that those have to be approved by the State Department of Transportation. And there's a question about whether the ones we have were approved, and I don't think that's been resolved as yet.
Well, I don't believe there's any record of us.
Well, we may not have a record, but DOT may. And so I'm going to explore that a little bit further. But what we do in response to that remains up in the air if there is no approval. But we'll see. I have nothing else. Anybody else? Not entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion passes. Meeting stands adjourned. Thank you all.